Good afternoon, everybody. Um, Welcome, everybody. I have one very brief thing off the top, and then I'm happy to dive into your questions. So, first, as we noted yesterday, we strongly condemn yesterday's terrorist attack against Israelis near Eli in the West Bank that killed 4 individuals. We express our deepest condolences to the families of those killed. There is no justification for terrorism. We are also deeply concerned by the rising levels of violence in the West Bank in recent months. There are troubling reports of extremist settler violence against Palestinian civilians, including the death of a Palestinian child and other injuries. We likewise condemn these violent acts and also extend our condolences to the families of those affected. Accountability and justice should be pursued with equal rigor in all cases of extremist violence, and we welcome the IDF's condemnation of these acts and expect the Israeli government to ensure full accountability and legal prosecution for those responsible for these attacks, in addition to compensation for lost homes and property. With that, I'm happy to take some questions. Go ahead, Said.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, where you started right there, but that attack came right after an attack on the Jenin camp, where the Israelis used Apache helicopter against civilians. 6 people were killed, including a 14-year-old girl that should be dreaming about boys and schools and things like this. So no condemnation there for an unprovoked attack that the Israelis conducted and were there for 9 hours. For 9 hours, using Apache helicopters, using all kinds of weapons supplied by the United States of America.
Said, we continue to work directly with our Israeli partners, with the Palestinian Authority, to promote steps to advance de-escalation. As you've heard us say, Assistant Secretary Leaf is in the region now, continuing to be directly engaged with the parties on efforts to restore calm. This is, of course, something the Secretary and others across the department are deeply engaged with as well. And we remain steadfast in our work to promote de-escalation, and even beyond this, an environment, which you've heard me say before, and where Israelis and Palestinians are afforded equal measures of security, peace, and prosperity.
In the words of a former U.S. diplomat who was really involved in all this process, its events in Jenin and Eile should surprise no one. A perfect storm is raging. A 56-year-old Israeli occupation. I mean, this is it. You keep saying that Putin could end the Ukraine war by deciding to end the war. Israel could end the occupation by deciding to end the occupation. You empower that occupation by supplying Israel with endless amount of weapons and aid and cover at the UN, politically everywhere, correct?
Said, I take issue with that characterization. We have been very clear about noting violence, extreme violence, noting terrorism, condemning it when it happens. You've heard us be very, very clear about this, and specifically, again, we have been very, very clear about our condemnation of the terrorist attack in Eli, but we would also have condemned the ongoing continuation of violence in Israel and the West Bank in recent weeks that, yes, has killed and injured Palestinians and Israelis. And this is something that we're going to continue to work directly with the Palestinian Authority on to promote steps towards de-escalation, as well as work closely with our Israeli partners also.
Let me raise this issue because I promised to raise it 3 years ago, come Friday, a young relative of mine, Ahmed Erika, was shot dead by the Israelis for no reason, but that's not the point. They have kept his body since then, as they keep many corpses, Palestinian corpses. And his father called me yesterday, and I promised to raise this issue. Where does the U.S. stand? Where does the U.S. stand on things like this, practices like this, where they keep the body for a year, for 2, for 3, never allowing the family closure, never allowing for a decent burial?
First, Said, let me say, just I'm very sorry for your family's loss. But first, also, we have spoken to this numerous times. Families must be able to bury their loved ones in a dignified and unimpeded manner. That continues to be our view on this. Still, can I go to Said, then I'll come to you? Yeah, go ahead, Said.
I want to ask you about this today's attack on a Palestinian village, Tumus Hayya. You know, most of the property, in fact, probably 90% of the homes are owned by U.S. citizens. This property is owned by American citizens that live in America part of the time, live in the West Bank part of the time, and so on. They go to school and they have businesses and so on. I mean, is the U.S. really taking any tangible measures to ensure that this does not happen again? I mean, according to all Israeli reports, the settlers were attacking the village while the soldiers were watching.
Said, we continue to engage on this issue directly. We take steps through dialogue, through our engagement in the region, through raising this directly with Israeli officials, as well as officials in the Palestinian Authority. We've been very clear that any kind of activity or actions that will incite tensions will take us away from our ultimate goal of a negotiated two-state solution. We find those to be unproductive, and you've heard us say so. Go ahead.
Following up on that, today Prime Minister Netanyahu said he was planning to go ahead with 1,000 new homes in Eli. I know you guys have recently condemned the settlement expansion. What's your reaction to that? He also said that his response to terrorism is to build up our country. Of course, settlements are theoretically not in Israel, but in what would be a Palestinian state.
Well, we've been very clear about this, that unilateral actions such as this one, such as settlement advancement, will only incite tensions and undermine the prospect of a two-state solution. Son. Sure.
I guess I'm wondering if you could speak more broadly to your ongoing relationship with the Netanyahu government. Are you, in response to the concerns that you're raising about the deteriorating situation, are you kind of stepping up your diplomacy with officials in this government, or communicating as well as what you're saying in statements and from the podium? What are you saying to Israeli officials about these concerns?
Well, I'm certainly not going to get into the specifics of private diplomatic engagements, but of course, we continue to robustly engage with our partners in Israel. As I said, Assistant Secretary Leaf is in the region, engaging with the parties on efforts to restore calm, to offer some specifics on her travel. In Jerusalem, the Assistant Secretary will meet with senior Israeli political and military leadership to discuss areas of mutual interest, including expanding and deepening Israel's integration into the Middle East and constraining Iran's destabilizing behavior. In Ramallah, Assistant Secretary Leaf will meet with senior Palestinian leadership to discuss priority issues, including U.S. efforts to support the Palestinian people. But broadly, Simon, we raise and engage these issues directly with Israeli leadership, with our partners in the Israeli government, through individuals here at the State Department headquarters, but also at our embassy in country as well.
Are you concerned that the actions of this Israeli government are jeopardizing the normalizations that happened under the Abraham Accords and future normalization that the Secretary was discussing while in Saudi Arabia recently? Specifically noting that there's reporting that Morocco is no longer going to be hosting a ministerial of the Negev forum, which has sort of already been delayed several times, and it seems to be being delayed again. Is the Israeli government doing enough to sort of address the concerns of these regional countries that are obviously don't want to be seen to be engaging with Israel this time?
Well, regional integration is not just an important priority for the United States; it's also an important priority for Israel itself, including the Netanyahu government. And don't take my word for it. This is something that they clearly have spoken about as well, and I let them speak to their own priorities. But broadly, we continue to believe that there are tangible benefits, of course, to regional integration, and there's important issues in the security space, trade space, and otherwise that can continue to be collaborated on through those mechanisms. As it relates to the Negev Ministerial, we're continuing to consult with partners about a second Negev Ministerial this year, but I don't have any specific updates to offer on that. Anything else on this region before we move away? Okay, let me do, Ron, I'll come back to you, Jenny. Go ahead in the back.
Okay. Washington Post reported yesterday on U.S.-Iran indirect talks, citing an EU official that European partners are not entirely sure of the contours of the current discussion. So my question is that why is this? Because Mr. President and Mr. Secretary always have emphasized on how this administration is close to U.S. allies and they want to revive ties which they believe were hurt during the previous administration. But now, why your close allies are not aware of what is exactly going on between you and Islamic Republic of
So
Iran?
we are in constant touch with our partners and allies, including those in the E3, on issues related to Iran. I'm certainly not going to detail those conversations or give you specifics from here, but we absolutely are in touch with our partners and allies on this.
Okay, I have one more.
Uh-huh.
House Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman Mr. McCall wrote an open letter to Joe Biden about re-engaging with Iran again. In the letter, he says that the House Foreign Affairs Committee has had a request pending with the State Department since April 11, and a special envoy for Iran, Mr. Mali, testified before the committee, which the State Department has not fulfilled. Why?
So we remain deeply committed to continued close engagement with Congress in a bipartisan manner, and department officials engage with Congress on a regular basis on U.S.-Iran policy. I will also note that it was only a number of weeks ago that Deputy Secretary Sherman was on the Hill talking about this very exact topic. So we engage with Congress regularly. I'm not going to get into specifics and don't have any visits to Congress to specifically preview, but this is, of course, something we're going to continue to remain deeply engaged on. Anything else on Iran specifically before we move away? Go ahead. Go ahead. We'll get to everybody. Don't worry.
The top Iranian negotiator, Ali Bagheri, today he met with the EU officials and he said that so glad to discuss the lifting sanctions. Do you have any plan to lift any sanctions on Iran? And then do you have any plan to release the money that Iraq owes to Iran?
You're speaking about the meeting in
the lifting sanctions, softening
but
sanctions.
are you
and
speaking
also,
about the meeting in Doha?
Yeah.
Yeah, so look, we are in constant touch with our allies and partners, including the E3 and the European Union, on issues relating to Iran. I'm just not going to get into the specifics of those conversations and would refer you to the EU to speak about anything about their engagements today.
And today the House Foreign Affairs Committee, they advanced about a bipartisan bill to make the Iranian sanctions permanent. To what extent do you agree with this idea, and you want the Iranian sanctions?
I'm certainly not gonna. I'm not gonna comment on active legislation that's going through whatever process it's going through in the House. What I will say is that as it relates to the malign and destabilizing activities of the Iranian regime, we continue to have a number of tools at our disposal. Sanctions have continued to be a big piece of that and have been instrumental in continuing to hold the Iranian regime accountable.
Last question on Syria.
Uh-huh.
What's your comment on the current situation in northeast Syria? You know that Turkey has increased their drone strikes, and yesterday they struck at a car in Kamishlo and they killed civilian people. then what's your comment on that? Have you engaged with Turkey to stop these attacks on your local partner?
Let me say a couple things. First, Turkey, of course, is an important NATO ally, and we continue to consult with them on a number of issues broadly as it relates to that region. One of the key areas of priorities for the United States continues to be ensuring that the efforts and work that's been done to degrade the influence of ISIS is not impeded on, and so we continue to be very clear that any activity taking place that puts civilians at risk, that puts at risk our efforts to degrade ISIS or puts American personnel at risk, we certainly would take issue with. All right, I'm gonna work through. Jenny, you've had your hand up patiently.
China,
Go ahead.
Following the president's comments last night, likening Xi Jinping to a dictator and saying he had no idea about the balloon traversing the United States, does this building agree with that assessment that he did not know about the balloon? And have there been any conversations between U.S. and Chinese officials in the wake of those comments to explain them? And are you concerned that this is going to set back the progress the Secretary said he made on his trip to Beijing?
So I will let the Department of Defense and Department of Justice and ODNI speak to any information that they have as it relates to the surveillance balloon program and any intelligence assessments there. I'm certainly not going to speak to that from here. And also, I don't have any specifics about any diplomatic engagements to read out. What I will say is that it should come as no surprise, of course, that we have differences and disagreements with the PRC, and the president believes that diplomacy, including this recent trip undertaken by the secretary, is a responsible way to manage tensions, clear up misperceptions, avoid miscalculations, and all of this is in our interest to do that. That does not mean, of course, we will not be blunt and forthright about our differences. You all, I know, tuned in to the secretary's press conference in Beijing at the conclusion of his trip, where he talked about a number of important issues and the progress that was made in a number of areas in conversations with senior PRC officials, and we look forward to continuing to engage on a number of issues as it relates to the complex relationship that we have with the PRC.
Have any U.S. officials been demarched by Beijing?
I don't have any specific diplomatic engagements to offer. All right. Let me go to Olivia, then I will. Go ahead.
Just to follow up on Jenny's question, because some lawmakers have called for more transparency into what we learned from and about the surveillance balloon. I know you just deferred to other agencies, but do you think that that would be constructive or detrimental to the relationship with China to reveal some more?
I'm just not gonna parse or offer insights on a hypothetical, and the provision of additional information on this program would certainly come from elsewhere, and so I would refer to those agencies on that. Go ahead, Alex.
Just to clarify, the comments that, given what happened during the past 24 hours, the progress that Secretary had appeared to have made, do you think that has faded or wasted?
Absolutely not at all. We believe that engagement and dialogue and diplomacy are integral to a number of the issues that we think are important as it relates to our bilateral relationship with the PRC. And there are a number of areas addressing the climate crisis, getting home wrongfully detained American citizens, securing cooperation as it relates to the provision of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors, and defending the economic interests of U.S. workers and companies. Those things happen through dialogue and engagement. And it's also, as I noted in speaking to Jenny's question, it's something that the president also knows and believes is critically important to ensure that there are no miscalculations made and no misperceptions happening.
The Secretary's comments that he made in Beijing on Russia and China, some of us have covered that because, based on your statements in this room. But we all also notice the Secretary has gone from suggesting that Chinese government might decide to provide weapons to Russia to calling Chinese officials in Beijing to be vigilant to ensure that Chinese companies are not doing so. I'm just wondering, I understand diplomacy is how you guys are making a living in this field, but if this rhetorical shift suggests that concerns that Chinese government might get involved into this war is evading?
I think the Secretary's comments speak for themselves, and I think we continue to be very clear-eyed and concerned about broadly any kind of support for Russia from any country or entity that could take the shape of the provision of lethal aid that could be used for further harm in Ukraine. And that's something that we're going to continue to be vigilant about and pay attention to.
But you don't generally believe that Chinese defense companies can go ahead and send weapons to Russia without the information or green light of Chinese government, do you?
Alex, I'm certainly not going to get into parse or get into the specifics of the Chinese system and how that works. The Secretary's comments were very clear in his press conference, and I think they speak for itself. Shannon, go ahead. I'll come back to you.
In President Biden's comments, Secretary Blinken said in an interview when he left China that the chapter on the spy balloon was closed. Do Biden's comments run counter to that assessment?
Not at all. As I said, just answering Jenny's question, that the president believes diplomacy, including the visit that was undertaken by the secretary, are a responsible way to manage tensions, clear up misinterpretations, and avoid miscalculations. The important thing to remember, and the secretary spoke about this a little bit in his press conference, is that it is important, and you've heard him say this before, about de-risking and not decoupling as it relates to our relationship with the PRC. And again, there are a number of issues at the nexus of our bilateral relationship with the PRC, whether it be addressing the climate crisis, whether it be the provision of fentanyl and fentanyl precursors, that we believe that we have an opportunity to cooperate with the PRC on to address these very important transnational issues. Additionally, I will note is that throughout a number of the bilateral engagements that the Secretary has had in his time as Secretary, a consistent theme continues to be that as it relates to the PRC, the international community expects the United States and the PRC to manage this relationship responsibly, and that's something that the Secretary, the President, and this administration intends to do so. Jan. Okay, go ahead.
On Secretary Blinken's comment, he said the chapter was closed if China doesn't do it again. Can you specify what he meant? Does he mean fly a surveillance balloon over mainland USA or cut down the program altogether?
I'm certainly not going to parse the Secretary's comment specifically, but yes, of course, infringing on our territorial integrity and our airspace, again, would certainly be a step in the wrong direction as it relates to this, and we were quite clear about that back in January, February as well, February, when this first transpired. Janny, go ahead.
Thank you. Again, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said that China called the United States political provocations. How do you respond to this?
The President and the Secretary have been very clear, is that we will continue to responsibly manage this relationship, maintain open lines of communication with the PRC. But that, of course, does not mean we will not be blunt and forthright about our differences. The President, the Secretary, we have been very clear about the areas in which we disagree, including the clear differences we see when it comes to democracies and autocracies. And so we have been very clear that we will not hesitate to stand up for issues and stand up for our values when it's in our interest.
Do you think the United States and China relationship will be relaxed enough for China to help North Korea's nuclear and missile provocation?
Well, this is something that the Secretary raised directly on his travels. He made clear that PRC officials, that they and the PRC writ large has the capability and responsibility to use its influence with the DPRK to encourage Pyongyang to return to the negotiating table and to cease its provocative acts. Abby, you've had your hand up.
Cybersecurity issues.
Okay,
yes.
then I'll come to you. Sorry.
US and South Korea cybersecurity talks. Do you have any detail on this? because they started yesterday.
I don't have any specific updates, but I'm happy to check with the team and get back to you. All right, go ahead, Abby.
Chairman McCall issued a fairly scathing statement following the Secretary's trip, saying that it had yielded nothing substantial except a mere promise of meetings in the future. I wondered if you had any response to that, and more specifically to his criticism that there's been a lack of progress on the Americans who are detained in China.
Thanks for your question, Abby. I have seen Chairman McCall's statement on the Secretary's successful and productive trip to the PRC. Broadly speaking, we strongly disagree with the majority of the Chairman's conclusions and would point out that, candidly, there are several inaccuracies. It almost feels as if the Chairman and I observed two different trips from back here. First, it said that the Chairman, he said that it appears that the State Department is stopping export controls and sanctions. This is absolutely false. One of the reoccurring points in the Secretary's engagements with PRC officials was PRC officials expressing their concerns on export controls and sanctions, with the Secretary repeatedly telling PRC officials that we would continue to do what is needed to advance U.S. interests. This is also something that the Secretary spoke about publicly as well in his press conference and other engagements when in Beijing. The Chairman, as you so noted, also mentioned a lack of progress on several issues, including wrongful detained individuals, fentanyl, and Cuba. Again, I would point you back to the Secretary's comments and our very clear readouts of this trip, where we discussed how the U.S. repeatedly raised these issues with the Secretary's PRC counterparts. The facts are this: the Secretary raised the serious concerns the U.S. would have about any intelligence or military facility in Cuba, saying that we will continue to defend our interests here. The Secretary also raised that the safety and security of American citizens who are wrongfully detained continue to be a top priority, and he directly raised those cases, those subject to wrongful detentions and exit bans. This is also true as it relates to the fentanyl crisis. This is one of the chief concerns that we raised in our engagements with the PRC, and we secured an agreement with the PRC to work on addressing the illegal flow of fentanyl into our country. Again, this is something that was publicly remarked by the Secretary and reported on by many of you and your colleagues that were on travels with the Secretary. And as it relates to Taiwan, the Chairman again put forward inaccurate information, saying we failed to address this issue. This is uniformly inaccurate. The fact is that the Secretary directly raised China's actions towards Taiwan in his meetings and pointed out that it is the PRC who has sought to upend the status quo. We've been very clear-eyed from here and in our engagements that cross-strait peace continues to be a top priority for us. But I want to address a broader point, and then we'll move on from this, is that the broader point that the Chairman made is that somehow dialogue with China isn't productive. And we take strong disagreement with that. The facts is that it is irresponsible not to engage, and it is counterproductive to our interests to not engage. An open dialogue is the best way of maintaining communication. It's the best way of avoiding misunderstandings that could lead to conflict. Dialogue is also the best way to avoid, to stand up for human rights. Dialogue is the only way we will get detained Americans home. It's the way we will secure cooperation on fentanyl and to defend the economic interests of U.S. workers and companies. So again, it's our views that the Chairman's comments were not only inaccurate, but unfortunate, but we'll continue to act in good faith and engage with Congress, and I know that members of our team would be available to discuss the Secretary's travels with the Chairman and the committee, should they want it.
Follow up on that a little
Sure.
more specifically
Yeah.
regarding Mark Swanan, Kai Li, and David Lin. Did he specifically call for their immediate release? What was his message in his meetings in China regarding the wrongfully detained Americans? Specifically, Mark Swanan is obviously facing the death penalty right
So
now.
I'm certainly not going to get into the specifics of the diplomatic engagements, but as you know, in situations where we have wrongful detained American citizens, not just in the PRC but elsewhere, we have called for their release, and the Secretary raised these cases directly in his engagements. We have no greater priority than the safety and security of U.S. citizens overseas. We discussed those at great length, and I just don't have any other details to offer on that. I'm gonna go to Nick.
China
Yeah, sure.
The state had said the primary purpose of the Secretary's trip to Beijing was to stabilize the relationship. And the PRC is calling the President's comments on Xi absurd, irresponsible, and a political provocation, as Jenny mentioned. So how does that stabilize the relationship?
Nick, the important thing to remember is that it also should come as no surprise that we have differences and disagreements. The president, the secretary, they believe in diplomacy. They think that this trip that was recently undertaken, it was a responsible way to manage tensions, to clear up misconceptions, to avoid miscalculations, all of which could lead to further risk. But as I said in answering Janny's question and Jenny's, is that we won't hesitate to call out areas where we disagree or to be blunt and forthright about some of these differences. And of course, one of those areas that the president and the secretary have been clear about is the differences between democracies and autocracies and what they have. So again, I don't think that the president's comments need to be clarified any further or to be interpreted any further, but we've been quite clear about this, and it is consistent with our approach as it relates to the PRC.
Just on that specific point, because the rhetoric aside, do the president's comments, have they done anything to derail what we expected was future travel by senior U.S. officials to China? Is planning for that travel still in the works, and do you still expect senior Chinese officials to be visiting the U.S. and is planning for this?
Right. So you saw the secretary speak about this in his press conference, and we continue to fully expect that future engagements in due course, when the time is appropriate, will continue to plan forward accordingly.
Do you have a timeline for when one of those senior level visits might occur?
Obviously, there's been a lot reported about others in the administration, and I will let their spokespeople in those offices speak to that. Let me, I'll come back to you, Jenny. Let me call in a couple more people. Go ahead. Yeah.
We have the news that the Philippines in talk with the U.S. to temporarily host Afghan refugees, especially those who work for the U.S. In Afghanistan. Can you elaborate on this? And also, this is almost 2 years that Afghan girls above 6th grade and also women are banned from going to universities. We were a witness of pressure and condemnation, but we haven't seen any changes. Is there any new policy, any new strategy for this to pressure the Taliban?
So first, on your first question, the United States greatly values our alliance with the Philippines, and we are aware of a draft resolution in the Philippine Senate to conduct an inquiry into the proposed temporary housing in the Philippines of SIV applicants for Afghanistan. We regularly talk to our partners on a number of issues of local, regional, and global importance, and we remain committed to the thousands of brave Afghans who stood side by side with the United States over the course of the past 2 decades, but I'm not going to get into an active process. On your second question, we continue to have a number of tools at our disposal to hold the Taliban accountable. You've heard me say this before as it relates to the Taliban's treatment of women and girls. It is a key piece as it relates to their stated desire of international acceptance and legitimacy. And until they allow half of their population the same rights, benefits, and access as the other half, not only are they holding Afghanistan's future back, but they also continue to stand in their way of their own desire for international acceptance and legitimacy. You've had your hand up patiently. Go ahead.
Last week, we saw a team of African nations trying to persuade Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine. What is the view of the U.S. government on those efforts?
So you've seen us speak to this broadly, not just as it relates to this group of African leaders, but various peace proposals broadly. And I will say the same thing here, is that we welcome any effort to help end Russia's war against Ukraine. We want this war to end. Ukraine wants this war to end. But any outcome must respect President Zelensky's call for a just and lasting peace, one that respects the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity. And any decision about negotiations must be up to President Zelensky and our Ukrainian partners. That is why we're glad the leaders from Africa visited Kyiv ahead of their meetings in Russia. I will also note is that we talk a lot about peace plans and peace proposals coming from some subset of leaders or coming from one specific country, but the important thing that we need to continue addressing is that Russia continues to show no meaningful interest in ending this war, which is made clear by the fact that African leaders spent hours in bomb shelters while Russia continued to bombard Ukraine during their visit. So we'll continue to help Ukraine defend its democracy and protect its people.
So one more. The U.S. have said many times, and you even repeated again, that Vladimir Putin have never showed interest in negotiate the ending of the war. But we saw President Vladimir Putin saying during the meeting with African leaders that Russia has never refused talks with Ukraine. What is your comments on that?
I think actions speak louder than words here, and I will just note again is that these very same African leaders spent time in a bomb shelter during their visit when they were in town to push forward and discuss a peace proposal. So President Putin says a lot of things. I will leave it up to you all to interpret how many of them are true or not. But again, it is quite clear in the actions of Russia, bombarding Kyiv, targeting civilian infrastructure, targeting energy infrastructure, targeting apartment buildings, targeting hospitals, that they show no meaningful interest in determining peace and ending this war.
This is hard to understand because he even showed.
It's hard to understand hospitals and apartments buildings being bombarded because there's only one country doing that.
No, but he mentioned that he wants to talk. He never refused to talk, and he even showed a proposal that he has prepared to end the war.
Then why are Russian troops still in Ukrainian territory?
Because we don't know actually who is not, who don't want to talk. If it's Ukraine or if he's, because he said, Vladimir Putin was very clear that he never refused to talk.
I think we know.
We are trying to understand who don't want to talk.
I think we know, and we're quite confident who wants to talk and who doesn't want to talk. Throughout the entirety of this conflict, Russia has not shown any meaningful interest in wanting to engage in legitimate conversations around a durable and just and lasting peace. I'm going to work the room. I'm going to work the room a little bit. Yeah, sure.
Thing. The reason that I'm asking is because this war is really affecting African nations, and everybody wants the war to end. If he wants to talk, and Vladimir Putin himself even show a proposal, is Ukraine also open to talk?
You have to remember here that that the genesis of this is one country, Russia, trying to erase the borders of its neighbor, Ukraine. And they're doing so violently, they're doing so in an unjust way, they're doing so illegally, and they're doing so at the expense of civilians who have been forced to flee their homes, flee where they live. Our partners in Ukraine have been subject to countless attacks and bombardments going back to February of 2022. And so there's a lot of conversations and calls about peace, but it's important to remember that we are not talking about two aggressors here. We're talking about one country that is infringing on the territorial integrity of another. And we continue to be very clear that Russia, through its actions, not its words, because actions speak louder than words here, has not shown any meaningful interest in engaging in peace. If the Russian Federation was interested, they could start by having its troops leave Ukraine, or they could start by stopping its continued bombardment of civilian and energy infrastructure. I'm going to work the room. Go ahead. A brief follow-up so I can get to your colleagues.
Do you have a comment on whether the peace proposal that she's referencing, whether that's a legitimate document?
That is for President Zelensky and our Ukrainian partners to determine. That's not for us or for any country to give editorialize on a peace process or not.
Putin's claiming that the document was what she's referring to. It's a 2022 document. He claims that was a peace proposal. a couple countries were a party to it. Do you know whether that?
Since 2022, you have seen clear action from the Russian Federation that they are not interested in peace. So I will just leave it at that. And any path forward and any negotiation and any discussion about peace is up to President Zelensky and our Ukrainian partners. Until then, we're going to continue to take steps to help Ukraine defend its democracy and defend its people.
If I could just get one more on Ukraine. There were reports last week, as well as statements by a Ukrainian ambassador, that Australia, the U.S., and Ukraine are considering providing F-18 fighter jets, U.S.-made, Australian-owned. So you don't have to confirm or comment on that, but I'm bringing it up because I think it illustrates kind of this continued, as each week goes by in this war, there's sort of a push of the Overton window on what we, the U.S., are willing to provide. So often weapons that were previously deemed, even by this administration, to be too escalatory. Last year, Joe Biden was asked whether the U.S. would provide F-16s to Ukraine, and he said no because, quote, that's called World War III. And now, of course, we are providing F-16s and maybe even F-18s, which are the more powerful model. This Monday, Biden reportedly told donors that the risk of Putin using a tactical nuke is a real possibility. So my question is, why do we casually continue down this path of providing stronger and stronger weapons when even the president himself is acknowledging the risk of nuclear war?
Well, that was like 5 questions when I said a brief follow-up. So let me try to unpack that. I don't have any news to share or specific updates as it relates to any security assistance. Broadly, though, throughout the course of this conflict, we have, in close coordination with the Department of Defense, of course, and Secretary Austin has done immense, important work and shown great leadership through the Ramstein process. We have made assessments in close coordination with our allies and partners about the types of technologies and systems that we feel our Ukrainian partners need, and so I will let that process play out. I don't have anything to speak to on that, and that has been our strategy as it relates to security assistance for our Ukrainian partners.
On the risk of nuclear war.
So again, you saw the Secretary speak about this in his press conference with his Singaporean counterpart. We've seen those reports of the Russia-Belarus agreement, and we'll continue to actively monitor the situation and how it unfolds and its implications. We've not seen any reason to adjust our own nuclear posture, but again, and this is something that the president has spoken about also, this kind of rhetoric about nuclear weapons is reckless and irresponsible from President Putin. It also underscores President Putin's hypocrisy on this. All right, Goyle, you've patiently had your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. My question is on Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, who just arrived in Washington after addressing the 180 nations marking the 9th anniversary of International Day of Yoga in New York at the United Nations. Here at the Freedom Plaza, he was greeted by hundreds of Indian American community members. My question is here that what are we expecting, one, because there is so much expectations going on, because he is going to address, of course, the joint session of US Congress. And also at the same time, when Secretary was in Beijing, China, was there any discussion about Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington at all? And second, what are we expecting triangle, US, India, and China, when Prime Minister Modi meets with the high-level officials at the White House, including, of course, President Biden?
Thanks, Goyle. Let me try to unpack that. First, happy International Day of Yoga to any and all who celebrate. I certainly don't have any other specifics about the Secretary's meetings in Beijing to share beyond what we read out. But if you'll allow me, also as it relates to Prime Minister Modi's state visit, I'm going to let the scheduling of the state visit play out, and certainly don't want to get ahead of that. But I know that the Secretary is looking forward to taking part in these high-level engagements tomorrow and Friday, both at the White House and here at the State Department as well. But this visit, it celebrates the U.S.-India partnership as one of the most important bilateral relationships that we have in the 21st century. And this is about our partnership and deepening our relationship with India. And after years of strengthening ties, the U.S.-India partnership is deeper and more expansive than it's ever been. We now work cooperatively to uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific. We drive innovation and jointly tackle global challenges. Together, we're working with other like-minded partners. Our countries will shape the future, working towards a world that is open, prosperous, secure, stable, and resilient. And I know the Secretary, the President are very much looking forward to engaging with Prime Minister Modi, his team, and other members of the Indian delegation on this visit.
Just quickly follow, sir. Please, thank you. How this visit will be different than in the past? Prime Minister Modi was also at the White House, and he met with the Secretary and also the President on several occasions, including different countries, Quad and all that. So how this visit will be different?
So first of all, this is a state visit, and so those, of course, are a little different than previous bilateral visits. But really, this isn't about comparing this visit with any other. What this is about is deepening and broadening and strengthening our relationship with our Indian partners, and that's why very much we're looking forward to welcoming them today, starting today. Jenny, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
Evan Gershkovich has another hearing tomorrow. Do you have any comment on expectations from the U.S. on that hearing? Will Ambassador Tracy be in attendance? And has there been any additional consular access to Evan or any requests that have been denied?
Well, we continue to feel that this whole legal process as it relates to Evan is a sham. We've been very clear that Evan is wrongfully detained, being wrongfully detained and targeted for simply doing his job as a journalist. I don't have specifics about what to expect at this next hearing. As has previously been the case, I am sure that we will have representation from the embassy, and I don't have any specific updates on consular access, but I'm happy to check that and get back to you. Go ahead. I'll come back to you, Alex.
Thank you. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Washington, D.C. already. Prior to this visit, Jack Sullivan, National Security Advisor, met with Ajit Doval, the Security Advisor of India. And at that meeting, Ajit Doval stated it is important for India to all countries to refrain from taking any initiative in neighboring countries that may have negative impact on their national interest. Leading Indian Daily quoted him as saying, U.S. should not do anything that disturb the balance and stability in the region of Southeast Asia. For example, in the time of Khaleda Zia's regime in Bangladesh, there was 10-truck military-grade arms was about to smuggle to Ulfa, the terrorist organization in Assam, and it was the main issue about the security. So, yeah, you will comment on that, please. Thank you.
A comment on what's your question?
That U.S. should not do anything that disturb the balance and stability in this Southeast Asia.
Well, I will say two things. First, broadly, the U.S. will not hesitate to act and engage on issues and areas that are in its interest. But what I will also say is that as it relates to the region, India is an important partner on a lot of these pursuits. As I said, we work cooperatively with our Indian partners to uphold a free and open Indo-Pacific. We jointly tackle global challenges, and we look forward to deepening our relationship with our Indian partners to continue to work towards a world and an Indo-Pacific region, including Southeast Asia, that is open, prosperous, secure, stable, and resilient. Alex, you've had your hand up. Go ahead.
Ukraine first. European Parliament last week recognized the bombing of the Kakhovsky Dam as a war crime committed by Russia. Please update us on where are you at in terms of your investigation?
I don't have any updates for you, Alex. We can't conclusively say what happened. One thing it continues to be clear, which is that Russia started this war, and it was Russia that occupied this area of Ukraine, and it was Russia's forces that illegally seized the dam last year. We continue to remain in close touch with Ukrainian authorities on aiding the many civilians displaced and forced to flee their homes out of safety. We've swung into action to help, and will continue to work with humanitarian partners on the ground, both through the State Department and USAID as well.
Second topic on Azerbaijan, Armenia, just move to South Caucasus. We have seen multiple reports about shelling in the border area during the past couple of days, just when the foreign minister was supposed to be in this town negotiating about peace. First, your reaction about that, and also where are we at in terms of putting together another meeting?
So we look forward to hosting another round of talks in Washington soon, as the parties continue to pursue a peaceful future in the South Caucasus region. We continue to believe direct dialogue is key to resolving issues and reaching a durable and dignified peace. And that also, Alex, I think answers your first question on this, is that we will continue to believe that steps that are going to incite tensions and elevate tensions are certainly unproductive right now, as talks between Armenia and Azerbaijan are proceeding in different venues. And so we'll continue to engage on this and look forward to hosting another round of talks very soon. I'm going to work the room, Alex. Okay, go ahead.
Lavrov yesterday appeared to have downplayed your mediating efforts, saying that it's all about squeezing Russia out of the region. Is that what you guys are doing? If so, thank you, but I just wanted to clarify.
If Russia thinks that they can play a constructive role in this, certainly they are welcome to, but we continue to feel that these talks are progressing, they're proceeding. The United States has been an important partner in this. The Secretary personally has been engaged on this. I know, Alex, you've worked on this issue and followed it very closely and are aware of the number of engagements that have happened both at the Secretary's level and at the working level. And this is all reflective of the fact that we think direct dialogue is key to resolving this issue and reaching a durable and dignified peace. And we also continue to think that that dialogue can't be replaced in this process. All right, Jalil, go ahead.
My first question is about 57 congressmen and 18 senators have written a letter to President Biden about the human rights violation by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. I know the relationship with India are very consequential and important and broadening and stuff, but just particularly Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and they have written that about the human rights violations, about the way he treats Muslims, especially journalists, and I've never heard you, State Department, condemn it.
That's we have talked about human rights at the nexus of a number of countries around the world. We've done so clearly. The Secretary's done so. I've done so. Others have done so from behind this podium. And as we do with other nations around the world, we regularly engage at the senior levels on our human rights concerns, including freedom of religion and freedom of belief. Our view is that a secure, prosperous, and democratic and pluralistic India is a natural partner for the United States, and that I am sure is something our Indian partners view as well. We also regularly meet with civil society representatives, both in the United States and in India, and in other parts of the world where we raise these issues as well. We value their perspective, and we think that it's critical to help them to inform our work as well.
One follow-up, please. Sure. Today, the ambassador, the U.S. ambassador to Pakistan, David Bloom, had a meeting with Finance Minister. Do you have any insight as to what was that meeting regarding?
The Pakistani finance minister?
Yes.
I don't have any specifics as it relates to that meeting. I'm happy to check. But of course, we engage regularly with Pakistani officials. And you've heard me say this before. Our engagement is critical to our ultimate goal, which is a stable, secure, and prosperous Pakistan. But I'm happy to check for details.
One small thing. When ambassador level meet the other finance ministers and stuff, I'm sure that it's probably because of the financial situation Pakistan is in. and the ambassador gets a little profile of the finance minister and the head of the meeting. So will the ambassador ask the finance minister that in the last 20 years the economic situation of the country has deteriorated, but his own personal accounts have multiplied like 200
I'm not going
times?
to speculate on the comments and what was discussed in the meeting. I'm happy to look into it. But again, our view is that our engagement with Pakistani officials is important because it is in line with our broader goal, which is a stable, secure, and prosperous Pakistan, which is not just in the interest of the region, but it is also in the interest of the United States as well. Saeed, go ahead.
I don't know if you addressed the South Sudan issue. The UN envoy, Nicholas Haysom, spoke to the Security Council, and he warned of an impending catastrophe in South Sudan as a result of 115,000 men, women, and children going into South Sudan, compounded, of course, by the chaotic and the lack of the sharing of power. I wonder if you have any comment on what is going on in South Sudan as it relates to the Sudan crisis.
I've not seen those comments, Saeed, so I'd have to check in on that for you. All right, go ahead, and then we'll wrap after that.
Yes, so U.S. officials reportedly have gathered intelligence information about Huawei and ZTE staff members going in and out of the Chinese intelligence facility in Cuba. So I'm wondering if you can confirm that information, if you're aware that the Chinese telecom companies are involved in surveillance work for China in Cuba. And secondly, there are reports saying that China and Cuba are actively working on another joint military training facility in Cuba. So can you confirm that information? How do you respond?
So I'm not going to speak to any potential intelligence from up here. It certainly would be inappropriate to do that. But broadly, we are monitoring and responding to any PRC attempts to expand its military or security presence around the world. And we watch how potential PRC actions may impact the United States. Our experts assess that our diplomatic efforts have slowed the PRC down, and there, of course, continue to still be challenges, but we continue to be concerned about the PRC's longstanding activities with Cuba. And the PRC will keep trying to enhance its presence in Cuba, and we will keep working to disrupt it. But I'm certainly not going to get into more from here. All right, thanks, everyone.